Matthew Knies is hurt and Zach Whitecloud did nothing wrong. So how can both those facts be true? Here's Hockey Insider Darren Dreger. Dregs, you saw the hit. You heard what the league had to say out there about the hit. How do they explain the fact that it was clean and not worthy of a penalty or suspension for that matter?
Well, look, Gino, it's all about the process, right? And this is still relatively new, even though we've seen in other circumstances where the officials are allowed to go to the tablet and review a major and rescind that major, as they did on Zach Whitecloud after a colossal hit on Matthew Knies of the Toronto Maple Leafs. But I do think it's important to explain the process here a little bit more. Now, instinctually, I'm told, that hit, even though it was devastating and it left Matthew Knies on the sidelines here, which we'll get to in just a moment, instinctually, an experienced referee likely wouldn't have called that major. But why wouldn't you call it a major? As we've seen in other situations this year, because you do have technology and you do have the ability to review the play to make sure that you got it right. But here's where I think people get a little bit confused, Gino. We suspect that when the officials put the headset on and they look down at the tablet, that there's a dozen people that are intervening, that are talking them through this process. Well, that's not it at all. Hockey operations, the situation room, really isn't involved beyond the supervising referee, the former referee in the situation room, who I believe last night was Shane Heyer, who all he's doing is directing the video traffic to the two referees who are ultimately going to make that call. So it was the refs, as soon as they saw the video evidence that this was not a major penalty, that rescinded. And I think most believe that there are many, many voices in that process, and that's just simply not true.
As you mentioned, Dregs, the most important here is Matthew Knies. He did not look good after the hit. He left the game, didn't come back. Any updates on his condition?
Well, look, I wouldn't expect the Toronto Maple Leafs to make anything official specific to injury. That's just not the way it works in the National Hockey League. But I think that we all saw what we saw, Gino, and that there was impact with Matthew Knies' head. We know that he has a history of head injuries, so it's got to be head, neck related. I believe that Matthew Knies is going to miss some time, which means he's going to miss games, which is a big blow for the Maple Leafs, because talk about being banged up. This team all of a sudden has a problem with injury, but I can't be specific to how much time he is going to miss. He's been through this process before, and he probably has a better handle on it at this stage than anyone.
Speaking of injuries, Dregs, after an amazing start for Ovi, he had 15 goals in the first 18 games. He's now listed as week to week because of that leg injury. We were waiting on tests. Any update on that process at all?
Yeah, Gino, I think we're going to hear from the Washington Capitals at some point today. I know that Alex Ovechkin is meeting with doctors, and as soon as you learn that information, automatically you go, okay, well, this can't be good. Maybe they're adjusting that timeline. Maybe it is month to month. Well, I've been assured that it's no better, it's no worse, but it is week to week, and it isn't month to month. Also, it's interesting to note, again, I think most of us can see that there's clearly a leg injury. Many jump to the speculation that it has to be knee related, and I'm told it's not knee related. So again, without being a doctor and simply looking at the video replays, perhaps it's high ankle. I don't know the Capitals are going to get that specific, but I think it is a source of good news for all of us hockey fans who are watching the march towards that goal scoring record, that it remains week to week, and it's not something more sinister at this point.
Yeah, he wasn't just marching toward it. He was freaking charging towards it. All right.
Yeah.
We all know U.S. Thanksgiving is a time where teams start to make the changes when they aren't happy with what they're seeing. It's already cost Jim Montgomery his job in Boston. Yeah. Are the Hawks starting to circle anywhere else right now, Drex?
Well, look, speculatively speaking, I would say yes. And I'm looking right at the Detroit Red Wings, and that's not new information, but it's definitely heating up there. The problem is that the Detroit Red Wings, because of their start, are with a glut of teams that are fighting for the same spot. And they recognize that they're going to have to go on a heater. Now, they do feel somewhat encouraged by the fact they're on a homestand, but you do have to consider the what ifs. And what if this homestand doesn't produce results for the Detroit Red Wings? We know that Steve Yzerman is a very active general manager, Gino. You know he's listening. You know he's making calls. You know he's looking for the upgrades. But if this homestand does not produce results, then I think you potentially could see a head coaching change. And maybe that goes hand in hand with, as you said, teams hitting the 20-game mark, the quarter mark of the regular season. U.S. Thanksgiving, historically, that's when we start seeing these sorts of decisions being made. But on top of all of that is the reality of a real good head coach now on the unemployment line in Jim Montgomery. So whether it's Detroit, it's Nashville, it's other teams around the NHL that are intrigued by the possibility of Jim Montgomery, that's where we're at, mostly because of the struggles of some of the teams like the Red Wings.
Some of the stories our insiders are working on right now. The full insider training with Dregs, Pierre, and CJ is coming up later on SportsCenter.